Okay, we're recording. I just don't like the light on you.
Turn the light off?
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure yet. That's not bad. Oh, mine, oh, wow. That's all right. Oh, yeah.
Close the bathroom door or
No, I'm looking for as much light as we can.
more light?
Yeah, that's all right. That's not bad. Okay, so we're recording, and let's take off from where we were yesterday. So you were in Missouri, and you're in the FBI.
Yes.
And so how long? Remember how long were you there? Just a year or two, or?
About a little under a year.
Uh-huh.
And I mentioned we got married back in Long Beach.
Right.
Drove back out.
Right.
And introduced my wife to the fertile Midwest and got her a little shook up about the amount of corn that grows out there.
What?
But she got used to it in a hurry and got a job at Higbee's department store,
Yep.
modeling and selling hats.
Yeah, that's right. What kind of car did you drive? The old.
We drove the
Chevy?
old 3940 Buick, 4041 Buick.
Oh, okay.
Still driving that old
All right.
clunker.
And
There's no one else who needed it.
and when did you get that Chevy, the blue and white Chevy?
That was back in 1955.
Oh, okay. So.
We went from Kansas City, we went to Cleveland.
Right.
I was in the FBI there for maybe, what time? We were married in 51, so we was probably 52, 53 before we went to Cleveland.
Yeah.
We were in Cleveland for a couple of years.
Yep.
I was doing a variety of investigative stuff, mostly criminal. That's where Cabbage Head Thompson got it.
Yeah.
We got him coming into town at a roadblock, stopped him and arrested him and put him in the can.
And that was Cleveland, or?
That was Cleveland.
Okay. And he was a bank robber.
No, he was he was a theft of federal stolen property.
Yeah.
Theft of property. I forget exactly what it was. It was some expensive government property.
And you called him Cabbage Head Thompson. Why?
I don't remember. That was his nickname.
Yeah.
I guess he had a big fat head. I don't remember. And we'd had a number of other minor kinds of criminal cases, stolen cars,
Yeah. You're doing great. Keep going.
theft of government property, deserters,
Uh-huh.
no accounting frauds
Yeah.
because they had guys to do that. Developed informants, tried to dig into some of the prospects. I had one big case where we had a guy was convicted, and I don't know how serious it was. It was theft, but he was in a Cleveland or Ohio jail, and he escaped. And as a result of that, he was designated a fugitive due to unlawful flight to avoid prosecution,
Yeah.
and it became a federal offense. And I tracked him down mostly by doing investigative work in Cleveland with his friends, his old cronies. Found out that he was likely he was up at his uncle's farm and outside of Ontario somewhere. Got a hold of the Buffalo, New York office. They had contacts with the Canadian police, and they got the guy, caught him at the farm and brought him back. So it was one of those minor cases, but it was one I remember. It was fun.
Did you get is that your first citation from Hoover?
No, that didn't happen until it got to New York.
And you had 7 citations in
Yes,
all?
yes.
Yeah.
I think it was 7. We Hoover had trouble getting people to move to New York, so a number of us on occasion volunteered to move at our own expense. So Hoover grabbed at that, and we just got transferred back to New York. We didn't have much furniture because we were living in a semi-furnished apartment. We had
Yeah.
started to build some furniture, and we had that shipped back, drove back. Ricky was born out there in Cleveland,
Right.
and we drove back with the old Buick. He was loaded the back seat, and he was sitting in a car, a baby bed, looking up at the light, the overhead light, the whole time. We got back to Brooklyn. It took us about 14 hours, I guess. stopped at my mother's and lived there for a week or two, and then moved down to Atlantic Beach and lived with your mother's mother in her house for the summer. I guess this was probably in the late spring when we came back, and I commuted from there into New York. And in the meantime, due to the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company owned Stuyvesant Town on 14th Street and 2nd Avenue, and they gave those apartments to FBI agents. I gave us first choice, so we got a 2-bedroom apartment there.
You got first choice in Stuyvesant. Had it just opened?
Yes. No, it had been open for a number of years.
Yeah.
In fact, Eileen's sister, your mother's sister, Dorothy, was already there, living there with her husband Gerard and her son Gerard. And
keep going.
Yeah.
You okay? Hi. Mom went to go get tea.
Oh, tell her to come and see me when she's done.
Okay. You can put that footrest up if you want. No one can.
See
They
it?
can only see your head, so you know it doesn't matter what you're doing from the waist down.
So we got ensconced in Stuyvesant Town, and with Ricky.
Yeah.
And you became pregnant there, and
You're good.
had a little. We had a little problem. You were
Yeah.
threatening to get born earlier than you should, and
Right.
Dr. Hardot, who was a relative of the Horner Hardot clan,
Yep.
was the obstetrician, and whatever he did, he kept you pretty much full term almost.
Yep.
And you were born there, and that's where we stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we were there. I would guess we were there 3 to 4 years, maybe more, like 3. During that time, I got heavily involved with the Communist Party and espionage, and we did a lot of number of investigations involving surveillance of suspects.
Yeah.
They'd come into town, we'd get a notice they might be coming, we'd follow them and follow them around and get to know their contacts and expand on those contacts. It was just like a spider's net.
Right. Right.
And some of them were just local Communist Party security people that went underground when the Smith Act, when some of the Communist Party leaders had been convicted, and they eventually combined to lead us into the Russian espionage.
Yeah.
And probably the most famous case, which one I've told you about, was Colonel Ivanovich Abel,
Right.
who came into New York, illegal alien. We had some information that he would be picking up messages in Central Park in a tree, and there would be a sign on a light pole with a cross with a chalk cross, that there was a message there. And we sat on that light pole probably for 10 days before we found anybody. Finally, this guy shows up, goes into the tree, takes something out. We followed him, and we had several of us on him.
Yeah.
We followed him probably all day long until he finally moved to Brooklyn and moved into what apparently was his apartment. And we kept following the guy, and obviously he had a reputation as a colonel in the KGB and as a senior espionage guy.
Yeah.
And so we were expanding the network on him, worked on him very carefully. We did a illegal entry on his apartment, which we found out that he had, in addition to his residence, like an office unit, and we found a lot of spy tradecraft, which was bolts that had a hollow that were, you couldn't open yourself, you had to open a certain way. Had flashlight batteries, wood pencils where they take the eraser off and you have a place to put a message. And he had a reputation as a guitar lover, Spanish guitar, and he had a lot of recordings by, I I forget his name now.
Yeah, the famous
Famous
yeah.
Spanish guitarist.
Starts with an S, Segovia.
Yeah, Segovia or something
Segovia,
like that.
Yeah.
And he had material, and he had a high-speed radio that could send messages to communist Russia,
Right.
and
And you were actually in his room.
we were actually was in his room,
Yeah.
confirmed that he was the guy he was supposed to be,
Right.
by finding all this material.
Sure, sure.
And we kept following him, and this went on, maybe lasted about 2 or 3 months, and he started to get what we call goosey.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty tough to follow guys like this without getting caught. And we were very careful, and we were very good at it. You know, if the guy looked suspicious, we'd drop off because we knew where he lived. We'd
Right.
pick him up again the next morning. But finally got to be such that the Justice Department felt it was about time we arrested him, which we did. Probably the following day.
Did you have to arrest him because Gary Powers had already been caught, or for some reason I always thought you only captured him at that time because the pressure was to get Gary Powers.
No.
No.
The only reason we arrested him there was that the Justice Department were afraid that we were going to lose him.
Yeah.
He was going to disappear somewhere, and they'd be totally out of bounds, and
Yeah.
we'd have no further contacts. And they thought we had enough leads to his other contacts that, that we would have enough we could keep doing.
Yeah.
So he was arrested, and he would say nothing, would admit nothing. We arrested him for illegal entry, not because we couldn't prove the espionage.
Yeah.
We didn't want to prove it in court because that would give away a lot of
Sure.
information.
Sure.
So he was arrested, handled by the Immigration and Naturalization Service, sent to a prison in Texas where he was regularly interviewed, and he just wouldn't talk. He was a
Right.
professional.
Sure.
And then this is where Gary Powers comes in.
Right.
Gary Powers, prior to that, had been flying U-2
Jeez.
planes over Russia, was shot down by one of their missiles, which up until then we didn't think they could reach this height, 60, 80,000 feet. And Powers was supposed to take a cyanide pill, and he chose not to do it, and he landed, took a paragraph, I guess he I don't know whether he had a parachute or whether he landed the plane, I forget what.
Yeah, I think it was a parachute.
Might have been a parachute. And he was imprisoned by Russia on trial, put in prison. And at some point in time, someone just offered to trade Colonel, what was his name?
Abel.
Abel, for Gary Powers.
Yeah.
And Abel's lawyer at the time had been a guy by the name of Donovan.
No kidding.
Yeah, Donovan, I forget his first name. And he arranged this with the State Department, the CIA, whoever
Yeah.
did it. And they were traded on that bridge over the Rhine
Checkpoint
in
Charlie.
Berlin. Yeah,
Yeah.
Checkpoint Charlie.
Yeah.
And Donovan later came back and ran for senator in New York State and didn't make it, didn't get defeated. And I don't remember hearing another word from the guy since.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move this light.
Sure.
Did you got a citation for that, right?
I got about 6 or 7 citations signed by Mr. Hoover,
Yeah.
and included what we call bonuses, or several $100s. Now, it wasn't a lot of money,
Yep.
but it was their way of giving a reward for work that was well done. We did a lot of things with the Communist Party headquarters in the United States in New York. Found out a lot of information. Did some illegal entry work there. Followed a lot of suspicious people. Developed the feeling for the underground. It was exciting and interesting, and you felt you were doing something important.
Yeah. I remember Mom saying that you'd get a call in the middle of the night and you'd get your gun out of the strong box and you'd be gone.
Yes, but that was in Cleveland.
Oh, that was good.
Criminal work.
Okay.
In New York, I was never on the criminal squad, and I was doing all espionage and security. And but I'd work at night. But we would be out there in khakis and T-shirts
Yeah.
in the summertime,
Yeah.
old clothes. So you'd obviously avoid detection. You didn't want to
Sure.
look like an FBI agent.
Sure.
We kept doing that, and at this point in time, I guess it's getting on 58, 59.
Terrence, Gene and Terrence are,
Gene,
Gene's born.
Gene, we bought a house out in Long Island,
Carl Place.
Carl Place. Gene had been born, then Terrence was born, and we began to accumulate a number of children, starting to be concerned about providing for their college. And as a result of a friend of mine who left the FBI earlier and joined IT&T,
Yeah.
one of the people he worked for changed jobs and went with Litton Industries, and he wanted to get somebody like my old friend to work for him in New York. And I interviewed him, and a fellow by the name of Schaffenberger, who later became an executive vice president of Litton Industries and then moved on to another big corporation. So I went to work in New York City in the downtown by the Pan American building, I guess the Pan Am headquarters, I guess, not Pan Am, the New York Port Authority headquarters, where my brother worked.
Yeah.
And worked there for probably 6 months, and I had an opportunity opened up to be the top human resources guy at a company over in New Jersey near Morristown.
EAI, right?
That was Airtron.
Oh, Airtron.
It's a division of Litton, and I went over there as a human resources guy, and my major objective was to keep the union out, because no company ever acquired by Litton had been unionized after they acquired it.
Yeah.
And the reputation of the senior VP he had this acquisition, was in charge of it, not my immediate boss, but the group vice president, he had just defeated the union about a year prior, maybe 6 months prior, by about 1 or 2 votes, and he was very worried about that. And so that was my job, basically, was to develop good human resources policies,
Yeah.
get to know the people, make sure you knew what they take, make sure they were taken well care of,
Yeah.
use seniority system. We had multiple plants
Right.
in Linden, New Jersey, and up in Morris Plains.
And what was Airtron manufacturing?
They
This is
manufactured
surveillance,
no,
aircraft,
they
radar.
manufactured radar equipment.
Yeah.
Basically, it was what they call, and I can't even remember the name anymore.
Yeah.
It was the tubing used to take the microwave signal from the antenna into the receiver,
Oh.
and it was used in aircraft, X-band, L-band, a few
Yeah.
other bands,
Yeah.
depending on the size of the size of the tube. And it was a defense, obviously defense industry company, and did fairly well. But at this point in time, times were getting a little rough. So I decided after about, first thing I did is I defeated the union election campaign by about, this fellow Gray, who was the senior VP, wanted to know how much we were going to win by. And my boss was Bill Boyd. He was kicking me under the table not to say anything, but I was a little proud. And I said, we're going to win by 75%. And we ended up winning by 78%.
Oh, is that right?
So I was kind of a hero
Yeah.
to the senior VP.
Yeah.
And in fact, about 6 months later, there was a union attempt out on the West Coast with another division that this guy had in his group. And I went out there for about 3 months to run that election campaign. We won that one by like 90%.
No kidding.
Yeah. And
I remember you would bring us back from California those crash cars. Do you remember those crash
yes,
cars?
yeah.
The
yeah.
rubber band cars, and when they hit something, all the body parts would
Yes,
fly off.
yes, yeah, yeah.
And I also remember back in the FBI, you'd bring us home shotgun shells, empty casings,
Yeah,
for us to play with.
yeah, we used to go up, once a year we'd go up to Poughkeepsie, New York. We had a firing arms range up there.
Yeah.
And you'd shoot all sorts of
stuff.
shotguns, machine guns, pistols.
Before we continue with your career,
Yeah.
so you've got 4 kids at home now.
Yes.
And did Mom ever fuss at you about leaving the FBI, or you just figured it was about time?
No, she never.
She was pretty good about it?
She was very good about
Yeah.
it. She, what I didn't tell you, I guess we moved from Carl Place down to, we bought a house in Atlantic Beach, which I fixed up.
Yeah.
Built an apartment in the basement, rented that.
I remember that.
Remember that one? And about that, and her sister was down there,
Yeah.
and her mother and father were still there, and they thought I had the greatest job in the world because the pay was good, security, prestige, that kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas poor Dorothy's husband, he was slaving with hard and hard at it, not making the kind of money that I was making,
Yeah.
and was probably working a lot harder, a little differently anyway. But no, to answer your question, your mother never nagged me about worrying about colleges or providing for it.
Yeah.
She always said she's got I have trust in your ability, and I'm not worried about it.
Really?
So, and it was a risk, you know. I left a good job,
Yeah.
good potential, and I had 8 years service, you know.
Yeah.
You couldn't retire till you were 50, but I was about 31 or so because I went in when I was 23, and I was with a high-tech company, and something I knew nothing about actually,
Right.
and it turned out very well.
Yeah. And you liked this new work that you were doing?
I enjoyed it, yes, because it was the thing that I liked about it. It was more, the results were more directly connected to
your efforts.
my efforts, my achievements. Whereas with the FBI, it was sometimes individuals. There's more often, more
Teams.
likely a group.
Yeah.
And the opportunities for promotion had too many negatives connected with it. You had to move your whole family.
Yeah.
And every time you moved, they paid for everything, but they didn't pay for the new curtains or the new rugs and that sort of stuff.
Right.
So the guys that wanted to get ahead, if they only had 1 or 2 kids, it wasn't so much of a problem. They'd go to Washington for a year, work down there and train, and then they'd go out into the field as an assistant agent in charge. And if you were successful there, you got promoted to a bigger unit.
Yeah.
You had to move your family. So, and you were getting a little more money, but it wasn't a lot more money.
Yeah.
And it was prestigious, and it was achievement because, you know, you could work your way up to be director of the FBI maybe. You know?
Were you, did you ever feel like you were in danger? I mean, did you ever...
Physically in danger?
Physically in danger. Anyone ever shoot at you? Did you ever
No one ever, I never
pull
had
your
to
gun?
shoot. I never had to shoot my gun.
Draw your gun?
In anger or in defense of anybody.
Right.
And I can't remember. I can remember going out making arrests in the middle of the night. Well, I had to have my gun out.
Oh, who was the guy? I remember that. I remember the story about the you had to empty a floor of a hotel,
Yes.
and this guy was reaching for his pistol under his
Under the pillow. Yeah, he was a fugitive.
Yeah.
But he was there with a girlfriend, so you know it was.
Yeah.
And but we got the key, and he was sound asleep. It was late.
You took your you took your shoes off and
Oh yeah, took shoes off, opened the door very quietly, had the gun out, and there were 2 of us.
yeah.
Yeah, and the guy jumped up and tried to reach under, but by that time we had it.
Right.
And that happened a couple of times, that kind of thing. We found a guy, he was working in a park, and he was handling the rowboats, and we finally located him, you know, through investigative means,
Sure.
without going into great detail. And we didn't know much about how dangerous he was. He picked up one of these big poles they used to pull a rowboat in the water, and I don't know whether he was going to do anything with it, but I stepped on the pole and knocked the guy over, and you know, we put the cuffs on him.
Yeah.
Didn't have any problem. A few of those things like that happen.
Right. So you've got 4 kids. And were you or mom overwhelmed? I mean, you know, today people are overwhelmed with 1 or 2, but was it fun? Was it crazy? Was it overwhelming just to have those 4? Did you swear you'd never have another one? I mean, what was it like? Was it pandemonium? Was it? I mean, there were 4 young kids, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I mean, just almost one after another. I mean,
They were. I don't know what the difference in age was between Rick and Terrence.
Gosh, 4 or 5 years. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
maybe 6. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
No, your mother was, of course, by this time we were down to the beach, Atlantic Beach.
Right.
We had the advantage of,
Family.
3 or 4 months, in vacation land,
Yeah.
and with some family. Not that Mama was a little too old to do much help, give us much help,
But
she
she'd watch us, yes.
She babysit things
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
and your mother never really complained about it.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of time off because we worked nights and weekends, and we could do some work on the house, and the house got more valuable and better.
Yeah.
And
Did you like Long Island? I mean, would you have stayed there, or were you? I know that we were thrilled to be in New Providence when
Yeah.
when we moved
Yeah.
there.
yeah,
It was just so green, and there was some property in the woods, and it was idyllic for us. That
Yes.
park, the Oakwood Park,
right behind us.
behind the house. But
Yes.
how did you feel about it?
Well, we had the house we had was an old house in Atlantic Beach,
Yeah.
but it was comfortable, and your mother didn't mind it, but this was an opportunity to do some things, personal satisfaction, achievement,
Right.
finance, and so we had a brand new house over in New Providence.
Yeah.
And she was delighted with that. In fact, it was the model house. And
It was the
I
model
think it was the
house.
last
I remember that.
house,
And
we
there was,
bought some of the furniture from the builder.
And I remember the builder didn't have such a good reputation as it turned out. Sort of a German name, I want to say. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But we had some nice neighbors, and we had that park right behind
The
us.
Smythes.
S-
The
Smythe.
Smythes. And the Ferrones.
Right, that's right. I didn't.
Maybe I should get behind that camera.
You should get behind it. Smythe was the automobile dealer in town,
Yeah.
and Ferrone worked for the State Farm Mutual Insurance
Oh,
Company. I
is
think
that
it
where
was
he
or
worked?
Allstate, one of the others.
Yeah.
And I coached the little league baseball team with Rick when Rick was playing, and
You did?
yeah, I coached.
didn't know
Yeah, I
that.
came home at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't get home all that early. Some of the guys don't home early, but I was like the assistant coach. Maybe
Right.
someone else did the thing.
And we had the Country Squire, the new Country Squire.
Country Squire.
And Susie was born there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then.
So life was good. You guys were happy, and
Yes, it was.
everyone was having a lot of kids,
Yes,
right?
it was.
So it wasn't. You wasn't that.
Yeah, Uncle Tom he's had 7 children.
And
so-
Aunt Dorothy was having
well,
a
she had
bunch.
5 or 6, right?
Right.
And so it wasn't. I didn't consider it, tremendous burden. At times it was,
Right.
because you didn't have the freedom to go out on your own. Obviously you needed a babysitter or someone to watch the kids.
Yeah.
Didn't bother your mother or I. We made friends over there, and
Yeah.
then we left. And then we left there because I left Airtron in Lytton, and went to this company in Long Branch, New Jersey.
Right. It seemed like just about. I remember from New Providence. Seemed like almost every 3 years we were moving. I think we
Yeah.
were at New Providence for 3 years, and so that. And I know that Kennedy was shot while we were living in Woodbine Circle, and that was 62, right? 62 or 63?
62.
62. So we must have left there within 3 years of that. So
Probably yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We moved because I sort of had gone as far as I could with Airtron as a human. I was a senior human resources guy.
right.
I had all job offers in California with Lytton, in this company where I defeated the union, not for a human resources job, but to head up manufacturing, which I knew nothing about, of course, but it was a management job.
Yeah.
And I was out there, and the president of the company was trying to convince me to come, and I was at his house having dinner, and we had what's that thing where you put the meat in the hot oil, and they used to
Fondue.
Fondue was kind
Yeah.
of fashionable, and
Yeah.
he had palm trees and orange trees,
Yeah.
and it was so nice. It was Southern California compared to New Jersey, where you
Yeah.
3 months of the year it was good weather. The rest of it was, you know, sort of marginal. But your mother wouldn't have anything to do with moving to California.
Yeah.
So through a recruiter, executive recruiter, I guess I had developed a little reputation as a union
Buster.
buster of sorts, and I got a call by the recruiter to interview for a job in Long Branch as the senior guy at Senior Human Resources at a much bigger private company. I mean, not a private company. It was a New York Stock Exchange listed company, one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, in New Jersey.
Yeah. EAI was?
EAI. They made analog computers, which was used, you know, widely in space and defense industries.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know that.
Scientific stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because it provided some advantages over digital computers at that time, because it was apparently faster and was more usable, more useful to the scientists.
Yeah.
So I went down there and we moved to Rumson.
Right. You looked at Spring Lake, I remember.
We looked at a few places. Spring Lake. Well, we didn't look at Spring Lake then.
No?
I think we looked at Spring Lake later when we came back. We looked at Long Branch, Little Silver, those places, and your mother opted for the more expensive house in the nicer suburb.
Yeah.
And it was nice. And I think I was at EAI for 3 years, and I was quite happy to be there. The boss who hired me was very proud of me.
Christensen.
Lloyd Christensen, and I remember we were going to buy another company, and I was going to run that company, but we never did that. It fell through. He took me out to. We had a division out on the West Coast, and he took me out there as a reward for something. We reorganized the company. That's what it was. We reorganized it from just a conventional staff company to one of independent profit centers. So I did a lot of work on that one. And he took me out. We went to San Francisco, went to the company out there, and he took me out for dinner and did a little sightseeing, things like that. First time I think I'd been in San Francisco. And but unfortunately, he was not an effective manager, and he had one of the scientists came up with a digital computer that could rival, had the benefits of the analog computer.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to fund it, and he didn't want to build it. So this guy eventually left on his own and started a company, which became very successful.
You don't know the name of it?
I forget the name of it. It was bought by, I think it was Pitney Bowes, or eventually I think it was Pitney Bowes bought this company. And EAI stopped growing. Business kind of slowed down a little. We had been growing. I used to keep a graph of our number of employees. You know, we got, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000. It was up at like almost
really?
This. Yeah, we had two plants. And the major plant was in West Long Branch, and the other one was in North Long Branch.
And you were head of HR, what was it?
HR,
employee relations, or?
Yeah, whatever you called it. I think we called it
for the entire company.
For the entire company, yeah. Wow. And had a staff of about 12, 14 people, and enjoyed it, and it felt it was fun. But I was starting to get a little itchy because the growth of the company. There's nowhere for me to go. I mean, I wasn't going to be president of the company because there were other operating people around. So I responded to a couple of inquiries from executive recruiters, and we ended up trying to remember. I finally interviewed these people in New York a couple of times, and they offered me the job out in Columbus, Ohio.
Shoe Corp.
Shoe Corporation of America.
Shift Shoes.
They had, they owned a number of Kmart type stores.
Yeah.
Hills Brothers, I think the name of those were,
Yeah.
in the Midwest. Owned Shift stores. They owned a couple of other companies. They did a lot of business overseas, and they manufactured in Maine and had a couple of plants up in Maine. And I came on and as the vice president. First time. The other reason the job was attractive, they wouldn't make me a vice president at EAI because they would have had to make this is the president saying,
Yeah.
I would have had to make the chief financial guy a vice president.
Yeah, right.
So couldn't do that. So, but for my career, I had to get to a bigger
on.
company.
All right, you're okay.
4:30.
Sue said, "Come on by when you can." Well, I don't know. I think it's the very next one. Oh, wait a minute. I have a key.
No.
We're all good. We're good.
Wrong side.
I should know. You know what? I bet
It's not on the
It's not
key.
going to be on the key. Yeah. So I think it's right next door. You want me to knock? Here, I'll pause this.
Turn that off, yeah. Did you have your tea, dear?
Yeah,
Good.
I called Sue, but nobody answered, so,
I just don't know
She said for you to come by.
okay.
how to pause it.
Well, I'll keep talking if you go ahead. Want to go ahead.
Let's see. Yeah, keep talking.
Okay.
You're doing great.
So from a career point of view, I wanted one thing that was attractive. I would be a vice president, and again, from a much larger company, and with a bigger staff, and with more challenges, and everybody was. Your mother was delighted. I shouldn't say delighted, but she was pleased to pick up.
Okay.
Come in, yeah. She was pleased to pick up and move the family.
Wait a minute. That's revisionist history. She couldn't possibly have been pleased to pick up.
She was not. She did not object. We went out
Really?
on a visit before I took the job, and went out looking at houses, and we picked one out, and strangely enough, everything was great. And then we came back. I don't remember the timing of when we sold the house or how quickly that happened, but we ended up putting everybody in the car. By that time, we had a few other kids. Then, I think we had.
Tricia and John?
We had Tricia, John, and yeah, Tricia and John,
And
not
and
Billy, not Billy.
Billy was born in.
He was born.
He wasn't born in Ohio, was he?
No, he was born in New Jersey before I moved the family out.
Yeah.
And
Gosh.
it was. But we finally went out there, and we took the dog with us, Corky, and we had this beautiful new split level. I guess it was a
Yeah.
split level. Had a big fence for the dog, and everything was good, except within a couple of weeks, maybe a month. Rick was miserable because he left. I don't think it was a girlfriend, but friends
Yeah.
in Rumson, and we threw him into a strange environment, and so he was very unhappy. And your mother was extremely unhappy, and got to be very serious. It got to the point where we thought maybe we'd have to break up. I don't know, and I don't know whether other factors involved, whether she had some kind of a middle-age problem or something like that. But I always attributed to mostly that Rick was the most vocal and the most unhappy, and I guess after maybe a year, maybe less than that, not much less, I said, okay, I'll promise to go. I'll try to find another job and move us back if we can. And it just so happened, within a short period of time, I got a call from a recruiter And in fact, I may have sent my resumes out to some of these recruiters, I probably did, and about a job with the National Lead Company. And I went in for interviews, I guess, twice, with a recruiter, and then the man I was going to work for. Then I came back, had another one. They offered me the job in the second visit at a fairly significant increase in salary over what I was earning at the Shoe Corp, and vice president title. And this is a major corporation, New York Stock Exchange. It must have been 150 million, 200 million in sales. No, it's got to be bigger than that. Shoe Corporation was 200 million. It might have been $500 million. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were ranked 151 on the Fortune 500.
Something like that. Yeah. They were an old-fashioned company, and what was happening was that they were the chairman who had run the company for 20 years was sort of being eased out, and they brought in some consulting firms, Crescent, McCormick, and Pages, as a matter of fact, to do a study. And part of the study concluded that they needed financial strength. They did not have budgets. They had a treasury function, but they didn't have a good accounting function. They had a labor relations function, but they did not have a human resources function. They had no succession planning. They had no training, things like that. So that's why they were recruiting. And they recruited a senior guy, I forget from where, he was vice president of finance. They recruited me as vice president of human resources, and a number of others. And our job was to build staffs and go from there. And your mother was delighted, but unfortunately Ricky wasn't so happy this time, because he had developed a relationship with a girl next door.
Who was a real looker, by the way.
Who was a real looker.
Tanya.
Well, Tanya was the sister, wasn't she?
Yeah, that's right.
And
Tammy. Tammy Thomas or something.
Yeah, and nice people. And I think if we had probably had not had this job, things would have settled down. Everybody probably would have gotten used to it.
Right.
Because Columbus was a great town. The company had regular season tickets to the Ohio State games.
Yeah, I remember.
We used to go to the games. We didn't have a place to go in the summer. They had 2 rivers around.
Right.
And we didn't belong to a club yet. But it could have been okay.
Yeah.
But I was kind of embarrassed, and I blamed it all on your mother, which was basically true, that the family was miserable and unhappy, and I just couldn't live with it. And I just fortunately had gotten this job with National Lead, and we went from there. I think you and I, we ended up moving back, and you and I drove Corky home.
That's right.
In the car.
Yeah, and he was on tranquilizers.
He was on tranquilizers.
And I was breaking up. I was missing my first girlfriend, Amy Henry.
Yeah.
I was pining for her.
Yeah. And we came back and stayed down at the beach at Mama's house, I guess.
That's right. And then waiting for our stuff, and then the Molly pitcher in.
Molly pitcher.
Yeah.
And we came back up to Rumson, and that was when we looked at maybe buying a house in Garden City, where my brother
Yes,
lived.
that's right.
And it would be a better commute for me.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we looked at
Spring Lake.
Yeah. But your mother wanted to return Rick to Christian Brothers Academy, and so I was willing to do this in the interest of keep the family happy, and it turned out okay. The commute was tough, but and my career at NL was pretty good.
I mean, really good. I mean, you were executive vice. You ended up as executive vice president.
Executive vice president.
And if it hadn't been for them deciding that they wanted to invest or invest more heavily in oil as opposed to chemicals and metals, you could have been the next president.
Yeah, he. That's right. Could have been. That was that was the reason they made me executive VP. It's strange. He had a consultant that I work with, traveled to Europe with a lot of times because by this time I had operational responsibility. I was a group executive,
Right.
and we had facilities over in Europe and Germany, Norway, and England, and I went with this consultant. And I'm not sure whether he was required to go or whether I asked him. I think he was sent over by the president to get a reading on how good I was doing. I think basically.
Yeah.
And he must have come back and said, yeah, he's doing a good job. And I think he was under pressure from his board to get a succession plan. So he was originally going to name me the only executive VP, but the consultant convinced him that he should name, so it wouldn't be just a crown prince, they would name the financial guy also an executive VP, and then the fellow, the group vice president who ran the metals operation. So there were three of us.
Yeah.
And then later on, as you said, he got to the point where he came out of the Mobil Chemical and the Mobil Oil business, and he just really felt that he wanted to invest into this business. And then he finally told me, he said, I've got to bring in somebody to take my place who's got this oil field background.
Yeah.
So I set the stage for my leaving.
Right.
And
did that make sense? Was that logical? I mean,
I was at a dead end.
Yeah.
I had progressed through.
he wasn't making it up. I mean, that
Oh
was,
no! Well, that's what he did.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
it was a good move for NL. I mean, not about you, but about investing more in oil, right?
Well, it could have been, except it turned out to be a major mistake.
Really?
Yeah, without no sour grapes involved. I think we had an oil field group, we had a chemical group which I was in charge of, and
Yeah.
a metals group, and they were well balanced, and you had the advantages of diversification. And he started to sell off pieces of this company,
Oh,
and he invested in
oil.
oil field services.
Yeah.
And he'd bring some of these guys in, had to put some of them on the board. So it was getting a little cluttered,
Yeah.
and it was getting a little uncomfortable. And when he told me that, I wouldn't be I wouldn't have a chance, I couldn't go back to vice president of human resources,
Sure.
and I'm not going to have much left in my chemicals group.
Sure.
So it just so happened that I was on the board of a company that was run by Bill Boyd. There was a guy I worked for at Airtron, and I was on their board of directors for about a year and a
Wabash.
half.
I forgot all about Wabash.
Yeah. And he had built that company up and done very well with it, headquartered out. And he'd come back a couple of times to visit us because we were friends. And he told me later that he came back once to offer me a job as his number 2 guy. And when he found out how much I was making at National Lead, he didn't do it. But then when I became executive VP, I had enough of a title that I could be a board member for him, and he wouldn't be ashamed of. So I got on his board,
Yeah.
and that was fun. And progressively, in a fairly short period of time, his health deteriorated, and he decided he had to make a move, and he came and asked me to come in to be his number 2 guy with a date certain that he would retire.
Yeah.
And which he did. And strangely, and I forget the exact timing, but it was it must have been in the early 60s, mid 60s. I don't make a long story out of it, but he had an assistant prior to hiring me that who thought he was the heir apparent. When he realized he wasn't, he went out and started to shop the company with recruiters, with the investment bankers. He went out with a list of what the company was all about, and what
Yeah.
the good things were, and what we could do with it. And as a result of that, one company made an offer. A couple of companies were interested. One was a little slow moving, and the other was quicker. But this is happening, and I hadn't joined the company yet.
Yeah.
I had got signed a contract, 5-year contract, which included all the goodies that I wanted. You know, we had to move to Chicago. The headquarters was going to be in
Oh,
Chicago.
that's right. That's right.
And I had to, and I was going to be the executive VP, and then president in 6 months. I think it was 6 months. And I was in a country club car, all of the benefits that that you'd want for it. And he had to get it past the board, and he took some time, and he said, well, I said very frankly to Bill, Bill was a good friend, I said, Bill, I got to move my family to Chicago, and I'm not, I got to have this kind of protection, I've got to have this kind of wherewithal. And he went back to the board, and I said, you can get somebody cheaper than me, probably, and maybe with better background. But he wanted me because he felt he could trust me, because he would be on the board.
Right.
He would continue to be on the board.
Right.
And he felt that I would protect his position on the board, which
Right.
I would have.
Right.
And but in the meantime, he was fending these other offers and looking at them. And one company, the guy was going to have to. They had their own president, and they were going to have to pay me off. I had this signed contract, 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have collected, but anyway, what I would have collected, but I was doing fine. But this other firm, it was called Kearney National, and they had just lost their president. So when they found out that they were going to get stuck with me, in effect, and they checked me out, found out I guess I was okay, they offered me the job not only of president of Wabash, but president of Kearney National, which was a
right.
major company.
Gosh, I forgot all
So then,
Yeah.
and I had this 5-year contract, and I had the job as CEO of Kearney National,
Yeah.
and the headquarters was in New York in the Pan American Building.
Yeah.
And
And all that happened in
a very short period
yeah,
of
it
time.
was like 3 months or something.
Yeah, very quick, maybe not 3, but and of course your mother was delighted, and I was delighted, didn't have to uproot my family.
Yeah.
But it was such a great opportunity financially. I don't know how many others I would have had, but I mean, this was tailor-made because I knew the principles,
Yeah.
And before the Wabash thing, I didn't know the
Yeah.
principles in the other one, and I thought about saying, well, maybe I shouldn't take it, but it was a perfect situation,
Yeah.
and it turned out fine. It turned out fine. So.
And Wabash made floppy disks.
Wabash they had several divisions. They made floppy disk and computer tape. That was the sexy part of the business that people thought was going to grow. But some more solid business was electrical equipment for use in automobiles, ignition systems and things like that.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's right. I remember you brought home a battery charger once.
and they made battery chargers. That was
Right.
one of the things.
Right.
But they had big contracts with Ford, and they did some good work. They had a secondary auto parts business where they rebuilt parts for the automobiles, and that was headquartered in Des Plaines, Chicago, Illinois. And they had the headquarters for the floppy disk and computer tape was out in Huntley, Illinois, which is about 80 miles west of Chicago. And so they had all these operations. And then Kearney National was a company that had a strong position in the power business. They supplied parts for utilities. It's what they call, I forget the name of some of the equipment, but they provided protected transformers from burning out.
Yeah.
If there's a surge of electricity, they kind of like a fuse. And they had a company that built flagpoles.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You remember that one?
So, and how long did you stay with Kearney?
5 years.
5 years.
I
Right
lived-
until the time that was your
My
last
contract,
job.
yeah,
Right.
my last job.
And you retired after, right when you found out Mom was sick. Right?
Yes.
Right.
I was about 58.
Yeah.
something like that.
And in the meantime, I mean, you've become a mean tennis player, right?
Yeah, I thought I was getting to be pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, kicked my butt, so you must have been
Yeah.
good.
Well, that didn't say much.
You were club champion, right? Senior champion?
Yeah, we were senior champ. I think we were senior champs. Yes, we won the
And,
senior championship.
I remember you used to, I mean, you really had the bug. I mean, the whole country had the bug.
Tennis?
That was the time of
Yeah, I played-
Connors and
yeah, yeah.
who was the Swede? What was it? Borg.
Borg.
But
Borg.
I mean, you'd race out of the house in the Toyota with your pipe at 7 in the morning on a Saturday morning.
Saturday
and you'd
morning,
be
yeah.
gone.
Yeah,
We wouldn't see you.
most of the morning. You guys would come down to the beach later,
Right.
and I'd see you down there for lunch.
So those are all. I mean, when you look back at Bellevue, living on Bellevue Way, right?
Bellevue Avenue.
Bellevue Avenue, Sailor's Way in Bellevue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A good time. I mean, you enjoyed all that, or I mean, we were.
Oh
you know,
yeah,
yeah.
sure. I mean, I had a good career. I was progressing. I was making more money.
Yeah.
I was able to put money away.
Yeah.
The stock market was doing pretty good.
Right.
We went up and when your mother wanted to move out of Bellevue, we went up and looked at the house on
Ridge Road?
Ridge Road, and she had looked one other one before, and I wasn't ready for that, and I remember
We just wrote a check.
wrote a check for $10,000, I think, as down payment or
And she was.
for the contract, and
She told everybody that story.
she was in seventh heaven, and she loved that.
Yeah.
And it was a nice house. It was a very comfortable house. I
Yeah.
liked it.
I mean, that was.
You
kind
didn't
of
live
a
in it very much.
No, that was a statusy house. I mean,
It was a status house.
but it was
For her.
But it was understated. I mean, it wasn't a McMansion. It was
No. It was. I think good architecture. It was 70, 80 years old.
Yeah,
They had been
needed
some work. There had been some additions to it.
great curb appeal though, right?
Great curb appeal. 2.5 acres, I guess it was.
Yeah,
A nice piece of property. One that we looked at. It was the Azalea House. Remember?
yeah,
The whole
Yeah.
bunch in front of the house
Yeah.
was banked in azaleas.
yeah.
And your mother was in seventh heaven with that house. She was really,
She
unfortunately,
really, yeah.
unfortunately,
She died in it.
She got it. She died in
Yeah.
it. And
So do you remember when you must remember she? I remember it at Thanksgiving, and Dorothy said, you're looking thin or something, and Mom had said she had had pains in her stomach, and had been taking aspirin, and then and Dorothy encouraged her to go in, and they usually went in right the day after Thanksgiving. They'd have their annual appointment. It's physical, right? Isn't that right? I think the day after Thanksgiving is
She
when
did?
they would typically go in, and she
Who's
went
they?
in. Aunt Dorothy and Mom.
no, I don't think so.
No?
I don't recall that.
No.
We didn't see them that much.
But remember, they'd come for Thanksgiving.
They come for Thanksgiving.
And then, well, anyway, so do you remember finding out about it?
Yes. Oh, sure. She wanted to use my antacids. It wasn't aspirin.
Yeah.
That's the first sign, and she'd never had a problem with that before. And we had an internist in Red Bank, very conscientious guy, and he gave her all sorts of tests and couldn't find. And knew she was losing weight. And I think he must have been worried, but he couldn't
Fine.
diagnose it.
And he
So-
told her to go. You're having troubles at home, and why don't you take up paddle tennis or something, right?
No,
No?
that wasn't him.
Yeah.
Then we got with these people. You remember the Godwins?
Yeah.
I think she told us, or he did, that they'd had a great doctor in New York connected with St. Vincent's Hospital. So why don't we go see him? We went in and saw him, and your mother was getting very, very frail, very tired, couldn't walk very far, and when she'd cry and break down, and the doctor says, this is after several visits.
Yeah.
I don't understand. My cancer patients have much better attitudes than you do. He said to her, it's strange. And he just couldn't find anything. So finally, I guess we realized that the head of medicine at St. Vincent's was a member of the Monmouth Beach Club. And I didn't know that, I don't think. So we got him on the phone and went in there, and within a matter of a day or two, we found out it was pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
And she knew that it was terminal, and
Were you with her when she found out, or was it a weekend?
Oh,
or-
I'm the one that told her.
You told her.
She, they did a exploratory something, or it wasn't exactly an operation.
But they called you?
No, they didn't call me. They told me they'd be over. I had an appointment to see him the next morning.
Yeah.
So I drove in, and they were sitting there, two doctors waiting for me, and they were ready to go, and told me, and they were ready to go in and tell her. And I said, well, there's no need of you doing that. I'll tell her, you know. So I went in and told her, and she didn't break down. I didn't think she was terribly shocked. She'd been very sick. She knew that she wasn't well, and she handled herself pretty well.
Yeah.
And drove her home, right? Just checked out of the hospital and drove her home.
Yeah.
She said, I don't know, to me or maybe Dorothy, all she wanted to do was die in my arms. A very romantic
Yeah.
statement, which of course wasn't very practical. But I gotta get ready for church.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
We'll end it there.
and you know what happened from there
Yeah.
on in.
We'll maybe after breakfast tomorrow we can finish up. want it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Tomorrow
Okay.
we've got nothing to do most of the day, and
All right.
you should satisfy yourself and
Yeah.
do what you want to do.
And you're doing what?
Nothing.
Oh.
It's not even on. I'm just trying to check the light meter.
Could that possibly be, or are you just smoking?
No, I'm not smoking. You're kind of a hottie, aren't you?
I try. What can you do when you're turning 45, you know? There's no magical pills or creams, even though I've bought them all.
You have?
Okay, stop it, because I know what you're doing.
What am I doing?
You're trying to
You want to
take
talk?
me.
You want to talk dirty?
No, because it'll just end up on the internet, and then I'll get famous. I'll move to Hollywood, and I'll get a couple of DUIs and end up in jail, and I'll never have my life again.
Okay, so
Okay.
we won't-
Goodbay.
We won't go that way.
No,
All right.
ta-ta, farewell.
Okay, we're going. How about
Let's get my wife out of here.
well?
See ya.
So how about a lifeguard story?
Oh, there were a lot of them. We had it's a residential community,
Yeah.
but we had we had one big heavy woman who was going out a little, not too far, but she started to get panicky, and we had to go in and rescue her. And as soon as we got her in, she said, "I knew we should have gone to church this morning." And then we had another one. I was walking a neighboring beach, and I was coming back to headquarters for something, and the lifeguard on the beach I was walking on waved to me, and there were two guys in trouble out there. So he ran out, and then I ran out, and we rescued two, not elderly, but heavy middle-aged guys,
Yeah.
Jewish guys who were
Yeah.
staying in a bed and breakfast kind of place in Long Beach. And the ambulance came. He swallowed a little water, but I don't think they took him to the hospital. But they put him up in bed, and then he called us from the beach at lunchtime, and I guess it was lunchtime, and wanted to come over, wanted us to come over and see him. And he said how wonderful it was. The other lifeguard was Jewish, a Jewish lifeguard, and an Irishman saved my life. And I want you to know, so they gave us each $10, and then said, I'm in the coat business, and he gave me a card and said, have your mother or your wife, I wasn't married, your mother or your sister come on in, and we'll give her a coat. And they went in in the winter and got a beautiful coat,
No
fur trim
kidding.
coat. Yeah, and
No kidding.
nice people.
Huh.
I mean, they were nice people.
Huh.
But and we had, you know, every summer, you'd always have a couple here and there, and we didn't lose anybody. Nobody died. You know,
Yeah.
it was fun.
Uh-huh. Okay, so when we left off yesterday, we were talking about, so Mom's sick, and you know, I would have imagined that I mean, if there's anything good that can come out of a situation like that, is at least you and her had, we all had, 9 months to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it was 7 months, I think, from diagnosis to death. But you know, I slept in the same bed with her every night except for the night before she died. We had a great doctor. They gave her methadone, which is what they use for addicts, and it worked much better than the other drugs she had tried. And she was painless
Yeah.
almost throughout the whole illness. She was very religious, and I used to read the Gospels to her and letters of Paul, and just kept constantly convincing her that she was going to heaven.
Right.
And she still had these doubts. I don't know why, but it was a tough time. Susie quit her job in Washington, came up. She was going to get another job, and she spent the last couple of months almost daily with your mother. And we had a nurse who was a nun.
Yeah.
They were.
She was a saint.
An order of nuns. Yeah, and she was there. She was there 40, 60 hours a week during the day. And I was home on weekends, you know, so, you know, it wasn't very pleasant, but all the children came in at different times and spent some time with her.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah. So let's so then you started dating.
well, one thing she said I should add,
Yeah.
she told Susie and Tricia, I guess it was, maybe Jean, that your father's going to marry again. He'll find another woman, and you just make sure you're nice to her.
Oh.
That was, which was kind of a big thing
Sure.
for any wife to do.
Right. Right.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was lonely, a year and a half. We stayed in the big house. Susie stayed there for a little while, and then she moved up.
How about me? You remember me?
You were there for a while. Billy was there, graduated, you know. Rick had come down occasionally. Jean came down. I don't think she came down after Mom died. But it was a time of adaptation. But after a year and a half, you know, the sharp pain goes away. I had 7 months to mourn your mother during the time she was ill, as opposed to people who have a sudden death, and they really have a shock, and it takes a while. So yeah, I was inclined to get married again because it was lonely, and I had just about retired by then, I guess, and I did meet a number of people, did some dating, and finally through Joan Peer, who was an old friend of Mary Lou's, I guess we got the word of what a nice widow lady who lives up in Summit.
Yeah. Did you know the Pierce
No,
before?
I knew Norm. And
Oh,
I
you
knew,
know
I
Norm.
knew Joan Peer from the Monmouth Beach Club, but
Oh,
I didn't
I
know her very well.
Right.
And she had talked to your mother about me, I guess, that he may call. And my mother told her, well, why don't you have a little cocktail party? And she says, oh, she couldn't be bothered, Joan Peer. So I just called your mother up and persuaded her to meet me for dinner and have a drink. And it went from there. And I guess within a couple of 3 months, I think we both realized that, you know, it would work. And we didn't want to tell anybody right away because it looked a little hasty, but I guess it was about a year and a half, maybe 20 months after your mother died, that we got married at Holy Cross in Rumson.
And so Mom moved in, right? And
She
did some
moved in.
redecorating, and
Yeah, she did major redecorating.
and you stayed in the Ridge Road house for how many more years?
Probably a couple of years. I think, you know, some people advised advised us against her coming, using the same house. We ignored that, and then I think we finally realized, Mary Lou did, that maybe it'd be better to change. So we started looking around. Prices were pretty high. We couldn't find anything in Rumson that looked, that looked adaptable. And finally, the townhouses.
Oh, the
were
townhouse
built,
came.
yeah, in
Yeah.
Alderbrook. We put our house up in the market. And it took us a year and a half to 2 years to sell it because we put the pricing on it at the peak.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize the market was going downhill like it often does. And it took 2 years to sell it. But sold it to some nice people. And we moved to Alderbrook. And we loved it. It was really a nicely decorated, architect kind of condo that had 2 floors,
Yeah.
4
Yeah.
bedrooms, I guess we had, or 3.5, full basement, and Mary Lou decorated it beautifully, and we were quite happy.
Yeah.
Well, all along, though, soon after Mary Lou and I got married, I'm retired, she's retired. I convinced her to try Florida, so we came down and made the rounds of all the gated communities, golf communities,
Yeah.
East Coast and West Coast. And the only one that she had any interest in was Johns Island because she didn't play golf, but this would be a condo right on the water where her grandchildren could come down and enjoy
Yeah,
it, as
yeah.
well as ours. And we rented down there for a month to try it, and we both liked it and came back the next year. And within about 3 days after we were back, we bought this condo, and we've been in it ever since. And
Good. I mean, you guys are pretty happy down there, aren't you?
yeah, we're quite happy. You know, we commuted from New Jersey for first 15 years of our married life. Kept either in the big house in Ridge Road, or after we moved to Alderbrook, and we'd come down in the spring and we'd go back in the fall, ship cars up and down, ship boxes of clothes, fill up both cars, and when we ship them up, and we come back and have to clean up the condo or the one condo or the other when we moved back in, and it got a little tiresome.
Sure.
And we finally decided to bite the bullet. And about, I guess it's now 5 or 6 years, we've been down there full time.
Yeah.
No commuting.
So that kind of takes us sort of up to the present, at least to where you're currently living. Sort of taking a different tack for a minute. I was thinking about your very successful business career and how you went from the FBI into corporate life and did very well. You talked a little bit about the ad agency, but or the advertising business, but had you given much thought? I mean, it seems like your business life your career has been sort of a lot of happy coincidences. But I mean, what did you want to be when you were young? Did you? I know that at one point you were actually thinking about being a dentist, but was there any other aspirations that you had? Any other career ideas that you had when you were younger?
I really did not give a lot of thought about a career.
Yeah.
When I came out of the Army,
It was more like getting a job.
I wanted to get a job, finish school, and my guys I graduated with all had the same problem. When are you going to go to work? And so I didn't have a predilection towards any field. It was anyone that would, get me started in something. The advertising one, as I mentioned, that was attractive, and the FBI was a spur of the moment thing. I'd always had a slight interest in the FBI because my cousin or my aunt's relative was an FBI agent, and we'd met him once or twice, heard some of his stories, and I always thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And when the opportunity came up, I thought it was a golden opportunity to get married, decent pay, and interesting career. The one thing I used to be shy of was an office job, being in the office 40 hours a week, which is what my brother Tom was doing at IBM when he graduated from Holy Cross. But no, I'd like to say I'd planned my career step by step, but that's not true.
Right.
A lot of happenstance happened.
And any regrets? I mean, do you ever? I mean, when you were a successful executive, did you ever look at other careers and think, gee, I would have liked to have tried law or been a doctor, or ever any second thoughts about your career? Or?
No, I don't think so, because fortunately, once I left the FBI, luckily, and without any false modesty, I kept moving up.
Yeah.
I kept having it. Just
It clicked.
you get a little bored with things at various points in time. I did it after Airtron for a while, and I moved to EAI, and it got a little bored there because of the things slowed down, topped off, and I was afraid it would decline, which it has. And then the other moves were just where I knew that I had to, to get ahead, I had to earn a vice presidency in human resources to move up and achieve, the top position in your field. And I was lucky enough to be able to achieve that. But at the same time, I didn't feel I was not a person that was totally committed to human resources. It was a practical move as an executive, and I was able to branch out from the human resources side to the administrative side, and then finally operations, where I ran multiple companies. So
it was always it was challenging.
It was challenging. Just kept presenting themselves.
Yeah.
And when it was a little disappointing that didn't work out at NL, but I enjoyed the career, and they were good to me, and I was financially well off there, and I kind of lucked out with the Wabash thing when Bill Boyd got sick.
Yeah. So switching from careers to your family. So 8 kids. No one has 8 kids anymore. So you look back on having 8 kids and a family. Any other thoughts about that? It was just it was tumultuous. It was fun. It was what?
Yeah. Well, and a number of you children have asked. I know Mary Lou.
Would you do it again?
Why did he have 8? Why did they have 8 kids? No one ever asked me that.
Yeah.
And basically the reason was we didn't believe in birth control.
Yeah.
And if you love your wife, and it's kind of tough to you can use restraint and rhythm method and all that stuff. And we tried some of that, but your mother wasn't very good at that. She wasn't too inclined,
apparently,
obviously. And but she handled it very well, and I was able to feed them all, send them to school, and I sent 7 of you to college, and Terrence to a couple of community colleges and up in Canada, and that art system in New York.
So that must be a source of real pride that you were able to put 7 kids, and would have put 8 kids through college.
Yes, it was, and also the fact that you all turned out pretty good. I'm quite proud of my family. Good looking, honest, good sense of values. I wish a number of you wish you'd go to church more often, but that's that's something you got to work out with the good Lord yourself. But no, I'm quite pleased, quite proud. I've heard many compliments about my children, and I guess that's probably my greatest accomplishment. Thanks to your mother, me,
Okay, let's see. As you're getting older in life, anything that you wish you had done, any place you wish you had gone, not necessarily regrets, but You know, you ever, I mean, living on the West Coast or becoming, you know, I don't know, I guess you took up golf at a relatively early age. I mean, anything else that you wish you had
Done that I hadn't done.
you ever find, I mean, I know once you talked about possibly writing a novel, a spy novel.
Yeah, I did, but I didn't do a damn thing about it. You know, I bought a typewriter. I bought
You did?
reams of paper.
I didn't know that.
absolutely, Yeah,
You never told us that?
yeah.
Did you have a plot line?
No. Yeah, I think about it. I told you about, you know, you're creative, and I used to think I was, and I like to read, and I still do, and you know, histories, travelogues, good fiction, but no, I never did it. Never.
No.
And I don't. You know, I think back. Well, I didn't like the commuting part in New York City. I didn't like the weather. You know, 6 months of the year you
Yeah.
couldn't do much outside.
Right.
You thought, well, there were opportunities to move to places like the West Coast,
Yeah.
but you know,
Hi, come on in. You can come in.
It's okay.
uh, but we didn't.
We,
You know,
We've got about 10 or 15 minutes left.
All right, move on. All right.
but no, I'm not a very what's the word?
Contemplative or
Contemplative. Yeah,
contemplative?
I live for the moment.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
expect-
think I really have any. I'm surprised I've lived to this age. I figured I'd never make the end
We
of the
are
turn of the
too.
century. Yeah, I would think so.
No.
And you know, I've kept myself in pretty good shape and good health thanks to good
Yeah.
wives, and so
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm able to have the quality of life that I've had over the years,
Sure.
and enjoy the sports that I enjoy, golf and tennis,
Yeah.
and being a Yankee fan now and Dodger fan formerly.
Right.
But no, I can't say I wish I had done something differently.
You think luck has played a large portion in your life, or I mean, it seems like, you know, from my vantage point, things have gone pretty well for you your whole life. I mean, I don't see I was there for a bit of it, and I don't see a lot of hardship. I mean, it just seemed like, you know, things mostly went your way. A lot of it hard work, a lot of it luck, or a bit of both, or
Yeah, I think that's true. A lot of it has been fortunate. I think the ability to know and understand people in the management side was sort of inbred in me somehow.
yeah, innate.
Yeah, I'm not a hail fellow well met. I probably would not make a great salesman, as you do, you know. But I think I tend to know what makes people tick to a great degree. I knew how to operate a work unit. I knew how to manage my boss, which is key.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make sure his objectives are taken care of, and I've done that. I've done that well, and some of it's luck, some of it's application of prior experience, and the breaks. You know, this country's a great country, and it's certainly been economically growing since in my business career. It's
Yeah.
been kept going up. A few nicks here and there, a few recessions, but it's.
How about let's see. How about tell us? Well, let's talk politics for a second. So, Republican your whole life, and your parents were also Republican, or
I think they were independents.
yeah, they were independent. No
I
kidding.
think they were. I don't know specifically. If
That's
they
pretty
were
progressive of them, right?
Yeah.
You never had any interest in politics, right?
No. I registered as Republican, I guess, most of the time, primarily because you'd hope there's some measure of fiscal responsibility on their
Right.
part.
Yeah.
It used to be their hallmark. It sure isn't anymore.
You know, you almost had an opportunity, or they asked Reagan and Nixon both asked about you serving in their cabinets, right?
Yeah, well, it was a recruiter for Nixon, and they were looking to fill
Undersecretary of Labor?
Undersecretary of Labor, and they asked me to come down and interview for it, and I checked it out, the perks and what the pay would be, and looked around with my requirements, and even though it sounded like a great opportunity, it was Nixon. It was probably late in his career, and it did involve more moving. And even though I thought I would, it would have been proud to be that kind of a position in the federal government, I finally turned it down.
Yeah.
Primarily for financial reasons, I guess.
And Reagan, were there?
No, I don't think it was Reagan.
Okay.
Never, it was just Nixon.
Okay. So how about something we don't know about you? I mean, is there something that I don't know? I found out the other day that you're cooking now. I don't.
Cooking?
I know. Remember, you used to cook breakfast on Sunday mornings, which was pretty neat that you gave Mom a day off. But maybe it's a love of cooking that we didn't know, or I don't know. Anything?
No, not really. I know my way around the kitchen just by osmosis.
Yeah.
And then when I was a bachelor for a year and a half or so after your mother died, I'd cook for those people were there. You were there for a while.
Yeah.
Billy was there for a while. Susie. But that was mostly simple stuff. Grilled chicken outside, steaks.
Right.
I knew how to mash potatoes and do that sort of thing. No, I never fancied myself a cook, and it's not a hobby with me now. Mary Lou's a good cook, so there wasn't room for two of us in the kitchen.
Right. Grandkids. So I know that the grandkids have really been a lot of fun for you. The old bumper sticker is, if I knew having grandkids was going to be this much fun, I would have had them first. Anything? I mean, you guys get a real kick out of seeing all the grandkids, don't you?
Yes, we do, and Mary Lou has been. She's adapted and got quite fond of a lot of my children and my grandchildren, and she follows them and she reminds me about birthdays and other occasions, and we see more of some than others. We so used to see Colin would be down once in a while. We took some of the boys to the ball games when I had some tickets. We didn't see as much of Jean's children as you would have liked. Later on, we've seen a lot more of Susie's because they were in the same town. But yes, I get tremendous kick out of them, follow their career. Probably if I'd made a greater effort, I would have spent more time with some of them,
Yeah.
It didn't work out that way.
Right. So considering that the audience for this is not just your kids and your grandkids, but future generations possibly watching this, any advice, you've lived a great life, you're, as you said, I think you have a real mastery of people. I mean, you're just good facility. You understand human nature and how to work with people. How about some advice, the benefit of your years? What would you say if you could to your grandchildren, your great grandchildren?
Well, there are books written by people much more able than me about success and how to get from here to there, and how to manage your career, things like that. I think religion has been a major part of my life, and still is, thank God. And I think if I had it to really get any message across, I think it's love of God and practice of your faith is an awfully important ingredient in mental health, and I don't think it helps your career with it. I don't think I don't think that praying for promotions and things like that is necessarily the way to go, but I think to have a quality life, I think religion is awfully important, along with athletics and exercise and good health, all those things. I don't have any magic bullet in terms of personal career. Hard work, obviously. You know, you're going to do something, do it right, and work hard, and take one step at a time. Look ahead, you know. But I have to think about that a lot more
Yeah.
to give you a more reasoned answer. But that's
Sure.
the things that occur to me.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, I think we're done.
All right.
Thanks for
Nice
taking.
doing business with you.